Ah, the 90s. You guys remember that? Neither do I. To be sure, it's a pretty intriguing time period full of mystique and wonder and adventure and other adjectives. For anyone that grew up during this time, there's a really good chance that they fondly remember playing the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo's second game console. A myriad of legendary games graced this console, the likes of which have never been seen before or since, but there is one game that seemed to take on a life of its own apart from the console. The Secret of Evermore. Now, I have heard things that you people wouldn't even believe. Reports that this game has some sort of a dark past or an unspeakable anomaly during production. And I'm speaking to you today, in the year of our Lord 2020, to get right to the bottom of these claims. How much you want to bet this is all a load of shit? Our story begins and ends, oddly enough, with Squaresoft, the American subsidiary of Japanese game developer Square Company Limited. Established in 1989 to localize the company's games for American audiences, they eventually got that unscratchable itch to develop a game of their own. In early 1994, production on Secret of Evermore began, with Squaresoft's Japanese overlords demanding that the game revolve around a boy and his dog traveling through worlds resembling various B-movie genres. The developers decided that it would be a good idea to emulate the style of their parent company, and they set forth making an action RPG heavily inspired by Square's newly released game, Secret of Mana. Upon release in October 1995, the game was critically praised but commercially unsuccessful, ensuring that Squaresoft never made another game. Secret of Evermore's development team was unceremoniously sent to work on other games within Square, ending their legacy. I get you. You're probably thinking in that tiny little brain of yours, okay, that's dope, but where's the bullshit? Also, I'm betting $50 that this is real. First off, no cursing in my household. Second, patience is a virtue. And third, you're on. As a fair warning, this is roughly where the facts of the case end. All claims beyond this point come from a singular article on the blog Rainwood Works called The Original Story Behind the Secret of Evermore, written by some schmuck identifying himself only as Andrew. The blog relates that a 22-year-old writer named Ed Kann was hired by Squaresoft before production began, supposedly because he won a writing contest that the company held. He was supposed to have brought a distinctively American feel to the game, but instead, he turned all Jeffrey Dahmer on us. As its only piece of hard evidence, the blog puts forth the bottom of a page from an unnamed contemporary gaming magazine showcasing Secret of Evermore. It's a hopelessly tiny photograph. The words of the magazine are pixelated and hard to decipher, and the screenshots from the game are even worse. Disturbingly, one of the screenshots shows a text box from one of the characters saying, "How can you live with what you've done? Those poor children." Whoa, okay, nothing like good old implied child murder to wake you right up, you know what I'm saying, guys? The blog purports that Ed Kann was behind this line and other unspecified lines throughout the game that were much darker in tone than the final release. Obviously, it doesn't appear in the game at all, but apparently that's the point. Ed Kann left Squaresoft sometime in July 1995, and any evidence that he had ever worked on the game was ostensibly erased. His name doesn't appear in the credits, and none of his contemporary developers have gone on record about him. Afterwards, the blog maintains that Kann became a cult author, attaining a small amount of fame for his horror short story, The Noise Coming From Inside Children. Jesus, that's like Freddy Krueger writing a book called The Nightmares Coming From Inside Teenagers. P.S. I love killing people. So, I had my doubts about this Kann fellow right from the beginning, and this story just confirms it. I mean, who writes a story with a title like that? This guy's obviously a few eggs short of a dozen, like he probably doesn't even get his flu shot every year. Well, I think it's safe to say that my money is safe. Nobody like this could ever exist in the real world, right? Right? But don't worry, guys, I did my research. It turns out that Ed Kann never actually existed. There are no horror authors by that name, and no books published titled The Noise Coming From Inside Children. If he did exist, he certainly never worked at Squaresoft and never published any horror fiction. It is bizarre, though. There's actually an entire blog dedicated to Mr. Kann. It's kinda cool to see something like this, but it's ultimately fake. All the blog's supposed evidence for Kann's existence amounts to nothing more than I remember him from my childhood and a newspaper review of the noise coming from inside children, which itself comes from a conveniently unspecified newspaper. Yep, it is fake. Fake, 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 fake. Going back around to Andrew's original blog, it's also obviously fake. Andrew doesn't have a single source to back up any of his claims. The interview with a former programmer from the Secret of Evermore team lacks any visible proof that it took place. The programmer, him or herself, asked not to be named, which to me is just an excuse to be vague and nebulous. Speaking of vague and nebulous, the name of the gaming magazine that a screenshot is supposedly from is never specified. It could easily have been fabricated. His last argument revolves around the beginning of the game being generally darker in tone than the rest of the game. The music by Jeremy Soule, of Elder Scrolls fame, underscores this observation, being very eerie and ambient throughout. Alright, fine, I'll give him that. He does have a point. But isn't that such a far-fetched conclusion to draw from some music, graphics, and artwork? That there's some sinister thing behind the game? It's all nonsense, I tell you. Utter nonsense. All of it. See, I ain't losing this bet. And nothing on earth can stop... Hang on, guys. I gotta get this. Oh, God. My life savings!